Film is a disease, Frank Capra said. When it infects your bloodstream, it takes over as the number one hormone. It plays Iago to your psyche. As with heroin, the antidote to film is more film.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to my Celluloid Heart podcast. Did you guys miss me? Because I missed you. It's been almost a month that, that I recorded the last podcast and put up a View to a Kill, and then I was just kind of like, ugh, now what do I do? And then I was like, I'm going to take a break because I am bonded out. So I took a little bit of a break, and then I say, you know what? I'm going to finish Timothy Dalton. I'm going to do those, not finish him. I'm going to do both of those, and then maybe I'll get on to the Pierce Brosnans. But I'm trying to figure this out. Plus, I'm in the middle of a move, so that's always exciting. I just tore down a bunch of posters, sending a couple to Joe Merle, and packing up the rest for the new house. It's very exciting. Also, with work, it ended up with the coronavirus thing going on. You know, I used to give 48 hours just to let you know what's up with me, in case any of you care. Used to give 48 hours. I was hourly, and so I got 8 hours every week overtime. So that was great. And it adds up to about $800, whatever, for the month, whatever it was. And so finally I'm like, oh, okay. And then the coronavirus thing hit, and they were like, look, we need to do billable hours. Need to make sure you're not like managing, wandering around town, checking on the guys. You need to work. So it's like, okay, so been doing 40 billable hours, and pretty much I've decided, like, I understand they need to drop me down to 40 just going forward anyway. So I'm like, that's fine. Just drop me down to 40, 410s, whatever we can do. Right now I'm doing 5/8 just because, things are tight with businesses. So anyways, that's what I'm doing. And the wife, she makes the good money, so we can afford that. She's a nurse, in case any of you didn't know. And also, before I get into what I've been checking out in the theaters before the theater closed, but my Celluloid Heart is normally, I take two films and I bring them together with one topic or theme, and I sprinkle some trivia in there, and there's spoilers always ahead. So be warned. Anyway, so that's going on. We're getting ready to move. We were going to close on the 16th of April, but now they moved it up and said probably April 3rd we'll be closing, which is fine because we've been packing up, and my wife's been packing up the rest of the apartment, and I'm packing up my room, which is my my little shelter, my little man cave. So, certain things I'm like, honey, be careful with that. She had my Hitchcock collection just sitting like on the top of a box that had no lid on it, and the box didn't. And I was like, honey, please be careful with that Hitchcock thing. I'm thinking maybe I should move it. And she went ahead and put it inside the box lower so that it would be safe. So I'm like, thank you, honey. Anyway, and then all the stuff that I'm like, I got all these books. I don't want them to shift around. So I jammed everything in good where it's not running anything. Anyway, it's all that good stuff. So now I'm all packed except for this podcast equipment that's on my desk. I got my monitor. I got my computer. I got my keyboard, my Focusrite, and my mic. And when I'm done with this, I'm going to wrap everything up, put it in the little bag, and then I'll be good, except for the monitor. I'll wait for that. But anyway, that's what's going on. So here we go now. Today's episode, as you can see in the title, 007, The Living Daylights from 1987. But first, see, I jumped ahead, and I shouldn't have. There's nothing to correct from the last show, I don't believe. But if you have any questions or comments, or you want to be on the show, write to mycelluloidheart@gmail.com, or you can call that number, which now I forgot, but I think it was 602-688-2333. 3. Anyway, I don't know. You can see it on my Instagram page if you scroll back. It's on there's a thing there. Anyway, so call that number. Nobody's called it yet, but I've missed you guys. I've missed being on here. I enjoy it. We all enjoy it as podcasters, just to share the things. Some other thing I'm going to share before I get into this, movies I've been watching, which are fucking, there's some great ones in here, is the thing with, the thing with what? Oh, so recently on Instagram, there's this company was sharing they had a promo. It's called Rebeller is the name of their thing. And it's where they do, like, they scrounge the internet for movie news, and then they'll just share it with you on their kind of page. And then also they'll write their own content, like write a blog about why Mad Max is badass, different things like that. And then they'll also they have a couple podcasts. One's called Across the Aisle, and the other one's called, I forget. So it's pretty cool. But this little promo had me so excited where I was like, oh my God, I need to change my podcast. Like, I need to be more into the movies, not doing like, like, I don't know, not doing some of these cheesy movies that I do just for fun. I need to do like in-depth, like, talking about these films. But on the other end of that, there's people that like the show because they're not big into movies. They can kind of be like, ooh, that sounds good. They don't want to hear about the director, about what else he's directed, about what else he's written, like any of that shit. So I don't want to go too deep that way, but I do want to get more, share the love, because that's what I wanted to start with in the beginning. The whole thing of sharing the love, sharing the movies, and my love of movies, hence my celluloid heart. Anyway, so that's what I'm fighting with. I might change the podcast just a bit. I might tweak it. I might do more in-depth, notes and things. So, but anyway, let's get on to what I've been watching. There was a movie called The Housemaid on Criterion Channel from 1960. This movie is so fucking good. So cool. This housemaid comes to this house. She starts flirting with the guy who's like a piano teacher and a music teacher at the school and a private piano teacher. And she gets a job as a housemaid, but then she's flirting with him and messing with him. And then he starts sleeping with her and fooling around. And he has a wife and a child. And it's just, it's total greatness. And they redid it in 2013, but the 1960 version, I would say, it's black and white, it's Japanese, Korean, but definitely watch it because it's fucking great. Then one day I came home and, excuse me, I knew that would happen. I came home and I said, I want to watch something. What should I watch? And we have the movie Spy that we bought with, Melissa McCartney. Is that her name? And from 2015. And I said, I'm going to watch that. It was fun. My wife was like, I want to buy it. So we bought it. It was fun. I like it. It's got some good jokes in it, some good funny stuff. So I enjoyed it. Enjoyed watching it again because I was like, oh, I forgot this was so funny. Judge me if you want, but I thought it was funny. Then we saw Spencer Confidential from 2020. I saw this a way back. That's why these notes, I just kept taking notes. So it's kind of a lot of movies, not a real lot. But anyway, Spencer Confidential was okay. It wasn't as great. Then I even went back and watched the TV show because I used to love the TV show, Spencer for Hire. And I put that on and I was like, But what's interesting is at the end of the first episode, the next episode is a firefighter that's being blamed for starting fires. And that's how the movie ends, with this firefighter getting blamed for starting fires. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Elevator to the Gallows. This movie, fucking forget Housemaid. This movie is fucking awesome. This movie is still in my head. I can't tell people enough to watch it. I reach out to Joe Merle. I said, you got to see Elevator to the Gallows. He's like, I don't have Criterion Channel anymore. I'm like, dude, I'll share my fucking sign-in with you or something. Like, you got to see this. It's a French film from 1958 by Louis Malle. Fucking, it's so good. It's this couple are the guy that he works for and that this guy works for, his boss. He's sleeping with the boss's wife. And they're on the phone. And in the beginning of the movie, and he's like, okay, I'm going to come and see you. She's like, I can't wait. He's like, me neither. And then he hangs up, and everybody's leaving for the day. And he tells everyone, okay, you can go ahead. I'll lock up. They're like, okay, cool. Security guard leaves. Everybody leaves. He gets in the elevator to go down. The security guard thinks that he's already left. So he flips the... before this all happens, he jumps out. He kills the boss because he's going to be with the wife and they're going to get money or whatever. But then he gets in the elevator, come down. That security guard turns off the power. Now he's stuck in the elevator and he can't get out. And he tries to figure out how to pull the framing off of the elevator and open the doors and try to get in there and get around and it's just really good. And it's not just about that. Then the elevator starts working because some people come in because they heard something and they go in there and they turn it on. Then he gets out and, while he's gone to go back up there to do whatever, that's what it was. Sorry. Security guard thought that he left, but he ran back in to get something. Somebody steals his car. Then it follows that couple, they stole his car. Oh, so fucking good. So great. Everybody go see it. Rent it, whatever. It's definitely worth the money. You got to read subtitles unless you get a dubbed version, but pretty great. Then we went to the theater before they closed, and we saw The Hunt in 2020, from 2020. And that was good. They postponed it because they were like, blah, blah, blah. This is about hunting, blah, blah, blah. And the Hunting the Elite, whatever, but it wasn't. It was the reverse, and it was really good. I really liked it. Me and the wife really liked it. It just threw everything on its head, and she's just so lackadaisical with just, Betty Gilpin is so good. I love her in Glow, and I loved her in this. So great. Then, of course, I saw The Living Daylights from 1987, which is good, and we'll talk about it here in a minute. The Front Page from 1931, which was on Turner Classic Movies, which was the original before they remade it into His Girl Friday. The Front Page has two males. The one guy's like, I'm going to leave, and the other guy doesn't want him to leave. The His Girl Friday is a girl reporter and a guy editor, so that works out a lot better. So that was really good. 31, it was good. It was pretty much exactly like the other one because they're both from stage plays. But definitely His Girl Friday's better. Then, this is a greatness. I went to the theater and I saw King Kong from 1933 on the big screen. This movie is so fucking cool. I'd seen it before, but to watch something like this is again where it makes me go, I need to dive into the real cinema, real good cinema, and not Legend of the Lone Ranger and Zorro the Gay Blade. I need to dive into some good shit. So this King Kong, there was parts he's fighting this thing. It was on my Instagram about this lizard salamander thing's wrapping around his neck, and he's pulling the thing off trying to fight the salamander. Then when he goes back to fighting the salamander, it wraps its tail around his neck again, and he has to keep pulling it. And all those little things that you could have just done, it was all stop motion. They could have done it in a different way, in a quicker way, but they took the time to make him fight that T-Rex really cool, fight the salamander really cool. All that stuff, and all the stuff that blends him picking up her, and all that stuff just works so great. Although the guy that worked with the miniatures said he didn't like when it cut to the big giant face. He didn't like that too much. But anyway, it's very good. Then my wife, I got home. I was like, honey, look, they got some movies. It was when, the movie theaters were closed, and now we got to stay home. And she said, I go, honey, look, Batman, all 4 Batman movies, from 89 on, are $20. We should get them, and they're 4K and all this stuff. She's like, okay. So we bought Batman, Batman Returns, Batman Forever, and Batman and Robin. And it was really good. I hadn't seen Batman from 1989 for like a while. Like I'd seen bits, clips here and there when I'm flipping through TV maybe. But this was really fucking such a great film. Jack Nicholson fucking kills it. I always love Michael Keaton. My favorite part is when he's by the fireplace and he's like, you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts. Oh, fucking great. And so good. So then we're going to continue on with those, but we're kind of saving them. We're waiting. Then I saw The Fanatic from 2019, which is funny because I had wanted to watch it, and I saw that it was on Prime, and then I heard on Those Movie Guys that Joe Merle had watched it, and he had the same thing I did, which is it was John Travolta's pretty great in it. It kind of ends in a weird way where I'm just like, oh, I guess you can do that and just get away with it. But it's really cool. Everybody check it out. I mean, John Travolta, I'm thinking he probably wanted a little more for, like, hoping he'd get, like, noticed after doing these kind of direct-to-video movies that he's been doing. But he did pretty good, so it was pretty interesting. Had some surprise moments. Then also I said my wife remembers watching Cloak and Dagger when she was a little girl. And this movie came out in 1984. And she was born in 81. So she remembers when it was on cable and she was young. She was at her grandma's and she was watching it. And I said, honey, I've always wanted to buy it. We should watch it. So I bought it. It was $5, $5 or $6. We bought it digitally, just like the Batman stuff. Bought it, watched it. It was really cool. It had, there's a part in there where the kid kills a guy, like with a gun, like his imaginary friends, like shoot him. And he shoots him, which he has to. But still, it's like, this kid just killed somebody. Like this kid, that's going to scar him for life. But anyway, it was good. Will I watch it a bunch? No. But will I go back and watch it again some other time? Yes, I will. Then we rented Richard Jewell from the Red Box, and it was really good. That guy is so good as Richard Jewell. And me as a security guard, it makes me think just like Richard Jewell said. When somebody else finds a backpack, they're not going to want to say shit because of the trouble that I'm in right now because you think that I set the bomb. So it's a whole thing. Anyways, real good. Then I rented Charlie's Angels from 2019 because I was curious. A lot of people didn't go see this movie. I felt they didn't see it because either A, there's been a lot of Charlie's Angels stuff already, like wait a little bit. 2, because they tried to do a Charlie's Angels TV show, and that lasted like, I think, 1 episode, and then didn't, that was recently. So then I said, or 2, that nobody likes Kristen Stewart, and so that's why they didn't go. So, and 3 was, everybody was saying, oh, of course, the director of it, Elizabeth, I can't think of her name, she was saying that she thought it was because people were against women, women heroes. I don't think it was that. It was just that it was not a great movie. It had some fun stuff in it, different things where they call her Sabina and not Sabrina. So her name's like different, like, so that's supposed to be funny. There's a bunch of Bosleys. Bosley is more like a title than a person. So there's a whole bunch of different ones. There's a really shitty part in the beginning where they're showing Patrick Stewart is retiring as a Bosley, and they have pictures up of him through the years. So they have a picture of him with Farrah Fawcett, picture of him with Cheryl Ladd, like all those Charlie's Angels from the TV show. So they put in his face instead of the other guy. And it looks like something that I would do. Like Jason Bromley does really good from Popcorn Promises. He does really good with like Photoshop. This Photoshop looked horrible. So it was like his face in there. And then they had like the Charlie's Angels with Demi Moore and with all them. Like he had a picture of them there. And Drew Barrymore and all that. Had a picture of him over that. had a picture of him. Like through all of it was like, come on. And now here. So it was like, oh my gosh. So it was horrible. So don't even bother. I mean, it was $1.80 that I paid, so maybe, but I'd say don't worry about it. Speaking of don't worry about it, Jay and Silent Bob Reboot from 2019. Now, everybody I know had told me that this was horrible. Except my cousin, he went and paid the money to go see it at the Fathom event, and where they played it, not where Kevin Smith was there, but just where they played the movie. He said it was good because it was nostalgic. They touched on all the points from all the movies from all before. So I was like, okay. So I watched it. There was one part where I giggled at the end when she says that Dante shows up and he's like, somebody put gum in the locks again. And Jay goes, we've been putting gum in the locks for 20 years, 25 years. So it was hilarious. Funny where it made me chuckle. And then something else that was kind of heartwarming was when Ben Affleck was explaining about to the daughter, about being a father and all that, and that was kind of cool. Anyway, but that's all I need to say about that. So don't even rent that one. And then Gun Crazy on Turner Classic Movies from 1950. It's like a Bonnie and Clyde type where these two people love guns. The one guy just likes shooting guns, and then this girl, she's like a competition shooter, and then he gets with her, and then they go off and start committing crimes because they need to make money. And, yeah, it's pretty good. So it's on Turner Classic Movies. So if you like old movies and you like those kind, then check it out. But now let's get on to The Living Daylights, shall we?
James Bond is back. Wherever he goes, adventure follows. From Afghanistan to Vienna. From Tangiers to Gibraltar. He lives on the edge. The Living Daylights, rated PG. Starts Friday, July 31st at a theater near you.
Yes, please give me some Timothy Dalton, James Bond. I fucking love it. So The Living Daylights from 1987. The plot is James Bond is sent to investigate a KGB policy to kill all enemy spies and uncover an arms deal that potentially has major global ramifications. Timothy Dalton as blah blah as James Bond. And when he accepted The Living Daylights, Timothy Dalton had already been offered the role of James Bond 5 times. He had turned it down due to feeling he was too young in the late 60s and having other commitments in the early to mid 80s. And also, Albert R. Broccoli offered Superman's Christopher Reeve $1 million to play Bond in The Living Daylights. Reeve turned the role down. Also, when casting for the role of Bond, Sam Neill auditioned and impressed all but Albert R. Broccoli, but this was enough to cost him the part. Stars Miriam Diabo as Cara Milivoy, and a fact for her is she was initially only to be used for screen test opposite potential candidates for the part of James Bond, but she impressed enough to win the main female lead for herself. So she may not be that great of an actress, but she's pretty good. And I remember when this movie came out, I'll get back to the cast in a minute. When this movie came out, it was like, oh, Bond is different now. Bond only has one woman. He doesn't sleep around. He doesn't smoke. And he doesn't drink. And it was like, what the fuck? Because they were trying to be kid-friendly or whatever. Stars, and I remember I was like, fuck that. But I was, however old I was. What was I? I was 16. I was like, screw that, man. Stars Jerome Crabb as General Georgy Koskov, and you know him from The Fugitive. He was the bad guy in The Fugitive, that doctor. Joe Don Baker's Brad Whitaker. John Rice Davies as General Leonid Pushkin. You know him from, of course, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Art Malik as Kamran Shah. Robert Brown as M. John Terry as Felix Leiter for a little bit. Desmond Llewellyn as Q, and Caroline Bliss as Miss Moneypenny. So, this was, Lois Maxwell was done, so she went ahead and retired along with Roger Moore, which was a good thing to do. Written by Richard Maybaum and Michael G. Wilson. And in an early draft of the film, it was set to end with Bond being given his assignment for Dr. No, making it a prequel to the first film. But this was eventually changed. And that would have been so cool. And that's what people that I think I talked about on the Spy Who Loved Me episode when I was doing it with Brandt, was people say that some theories are that that's what this is going to be, that Rami Malek, what No Time to Die is going to be. Rami Malek has the gloves and everything and looks like everybody's like, he's Dr. No. There's no getting around it. We know he's Dr. No. And so they're saying he may run off to Jamaica and then Bond has to follow him to Jamaica. And then that's how you can end with Daniel Craig. And now you start up with Sean Connery. And now when you restart it, you start it totally new, which is a good idea and a good premise. And that would have been good here too. It would have been kind of cool, but I don't know if anybody would have got it, back when you couldn't get videos all the time, so you couldn't rewatch the movies. Anyway, directed by John Glenn. This was, like his fourth, I think. This was the last of the James Bond films to have its score written by John Barry, who had worked on many of the previous Bond films. And M's office on a cargo plane. So it starts with, like, they're on this cargo plane. And all of a sudden, but they're in M's office, but it's on a cargo plane. It's very cool. And then they do some skydiving out of the back, which is pretty cool. They all jump out, 3 of them. Then it's a paintball scenario. So now you see that it's a training mission. And then there's a guy with a real gun, and he kills an agent. And then Bond hears the guy fall, and he turns around, and that's when you see him for the first time. And he's like, what the fuck? And then coming down the little rope, it says, death to spies, written on this piece of paper. And then the guy takes off in a Land Rover. Bond jumps on suspect's Land Rover. Timothy Dalton did some stunts himself, including riding on top of a speeding Land Rover at the start of the film. Bond is being shot at, then rips inside the Land Rover. This part is so cool. So he's being shot at from the guy, like shot through the roof. It's like a soft roof canopy. And he just like rips it open, and Bond climbs in like face first, and he's like trying to fight with the guy, and then the Land Rover drives off the road and is heading like off this cliff and heading for the ocean, and it's got explosives in the back that are on fire from the gunshots and stuff. And as the car is falling and Bond is fighting, he kicks out the windshield. Fucking badass Bond moment. So he kicks out the windshield, and you're like, what's he doing? But he's making airflow. So he kicks out the windshield so that there is airflow. Then he pulls his chute and is pulled out of the Land Rover, and he is safe, and the Land Rover and the bad guy explode, and the explosion causes Bond's chute to catch on fire, so he has to look for a place to land. Lands on this woman's yacht. She asks who he is, and he takes her phone and tells her quickly, which is so good. He's not like Bond, James Bond. He's not like Bond, James Bond. He's like Bond, James Bond, and then he gets on the phone, and he says, I will be there in an hour. Then he looks at her and says, better make it 2. Then the music kicks in. Fucking badass Living Daylights by a-ha, which now I'll play you a little snippet of that so I don't get copyright infringement like I did on YouTube for Spy Who Loved Me. Carly Simon was like, fuck you. Anyway, here it is. I like that song. I think it's pretty good. Some people may differ, may say no, but I like it. James Bond is assigned to aid the defection of a KGB. Boom, hang on. I had to make this big and giant for me to read, yo. Okay, now I got to scroll all the way back. Okay, hang on. I'm right here. KGB officer General Georgy Koskov, covering his escape from a concert hall in Bratislava, Czechoslovakia during intermission. During the mission, Bond notices that the KGB sniper assigned to prevent Koskov's escape is a female cellist from the orchestra. Disobeying his orders to kill the sniper, He instead shoots a rifle from her hands, then uses the Trans-Siberian pipeline to smuggle Koskov across the border into Austria and then on to Britain. And I love that they put the defector in the pipeline. Like, it's so cool. Like, when I first saw that, and every time I watch it, I fucking love it. So Bond, is on a mission with this guy who's kind of his boss. And the guy's like, hey, blah, 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 we're going to do this. And he's like, okay. He's like, I'm dealing with Koskov. He's like, I'm going to take him somewhere you don't need to know. Bond's like, okay, whatever. So they get there. They're getting ready to get rid of him. And they're blocked off. And they can't get him. They can't figure out how to do it. And so then Bond is like, I'll do it. So he takes me to the Trans-Siberian pipeline where he knows this girl. He pays her off. She seduces the guy so he's not watching when the pressures are all wacky. Then they have this little thing that is like a little missile inside this pipeline, and he puts Koskov in there, and he's like, oh, this, this is, this works, whatever. He's like, it's risky, and he's like, how many times has it been used? He goes, you're the first, and then he sends him away. And before Bond leaves the other agent, I believe it's 004, he's like, well, where are you going? He goes, it's a need to know, and it's like, oh, fucking, you use that because he used that on you. So it's so cool. And in his post-defection debriefing, Koskov informs MI6 that the KGB's old policy of Smrt-Spionum, meaning death to spies, has been revived by General Leonid Pushkin, the new head of the KGB. And we meet the new Miss Moneypenny, and she kind of has this flirty thing with Bond, which is pretty cool. She does good. When I first saw her, I was like, you're not my Moneypenny. But now I'm like, cool. I'm okay. Had a take a drink of my coffee Kolsch. It's a coffee-flavored beer. Anyway, Koskov is later abducted from the safe house and assumed to have been taken back to Moscow. So this guy shows up. This guy who you're like, that guy looks familiar. And you put glasses on the guy. He's fucking the bad guy from Die Hard. Anyway, he kills the milkman. Then he infiltrates this safe house compound pretending to be the milkman. But he's got these explosive milk bottles that have like gas in them. So he blows it and then they'll blow up. And so he's throwing them in each room. And like I said, the man, he's one of the robbers from Die Hard. The guy that says, you wouldn't shoot me. You're a police officer. There are rules for police officers. And McClane says, so my captain keeps telling me. Boom! And hits him with his elbow. Fucking badass. Bond is directed to track down Pushkin in Tangier and kill him. So they take Koskov away. And it's like, holy shit. And it's cool because some of the people that work at that safe house aren't just like, they act like they're a butler, but they actually have a gun. They pull guns out and shit. So it's pretty cool. Track down Pushkin, kill him to forestall, to forestall further killings of agents and escalations of tensions between the Soviet Union and the West. Bond agrees to carry out the mission when he learns that the assassin who killed 004 was the one that was hanging from the thing when they were doing the paintball stuff. Left a note bearing the same message, Smrt-Spionum. Q gives him a keychain that is gas and explosive, also a lockpick that will unlock 90% of the world's locks. Now, I like this because it's not like, here's a lockpick that'll open every lock in the world. This will open 90% of the locks, which I kind of like. I kind of wanted Bond to try to open a lock and be like, oh, shit. I can't. This must be the 10%. And there's a fact, when filming The Living Daylights, Prince Charles was touring the set when they filmed Q showing off his ghetto blaster, where it's this guy holding the ghetto blaster on his shoulder, and then this like thing comes out. It's like a bazooka. And Prince Charles was allowed to press the button to set off the effects seen in the final film. So when you see that explosion, or the rocket, like that's Prince Charles pushing that. Which, by the way, Prince Charles has coronavirus, but I guess he's in solitude and he's doing okay. He went to one of his other castles, so, which is kind of funny. I was like, really? Like, they're like, the Queen is in Windsor and he's going somewhere else. Anyway, That's neither here nor there. Bond returns to Bratislava to track down the cellist, Kara Milivoy. He finds out that Koskov's entire defection was staged, so it was all fake, and that Kara is actually Koskov's girlfriend. Bond convinces Kara that he is a friend of Koskov's and persuades her to accompany him to Vienna, supposedly to be reunited with him. And there's a part where he's like, I'm going to sneak you away because she's being watched by the Russians because they're waiting for Koskov to come back to talk to her. And there's a part where, like, there's these little trams, whatever, cable cars. And she goes into, she's like, how are we going to get away? And he says, I have an idea. And then it just cuts to them sitting in the car watching. And they see her come out. She's got her cello case. She sets her cello case down and to make a phone call in this phone booth. And then the cable car goes by. And when the cable car is done going by, they look, and she's still standing in the phone booth. And but all they've done is put her clothes on the cello case. So then Bond like drives away with her, and they don't see it. And then all of a sudden they're like, she's not moving. She's taking a while. And they go over there and they find that it's clothes on the cello case. And they're like, what the fuck? So it's very cool. They escape Bratislava while driving, pursued by the KGB. So there's a police chase and the KGB. He uses lasers on he's got this Aston Martin, but like an older, like an 80. I don't know if it's an 89, but it's the one that I was telling Joe that is in the new movie, No Time to Die. You see him pull up and get out of the car. When he unveils that car in the driveway, in the garage, you see him unveil a car, and it's the old Aston Martin. And I was like, awesome, that's fucking from, Living Daylights. And so he uses lasers. He uses rockets to blow up like this truck that's trying to block the way, and bulletproof glass, and an outrigger, like they're stuck in the snow. And then he's like, he pushes a button. She goes, what is that? He goes, an outrigger. And it pushes down these skis, and a rocket motor comes on in the back, which when Joe saw this is what I was talking to Joe about on For Your Eyes Only. Joe was like, oh my God, really? And I was like, that was fucking badass. Like, I loved it. Like, spikes came out of the tires. He had the skis on, the rocket motor. But they jump over the bad guys, but then they keep going. They crash into some trees. And so then they have to leave it. And they set the self-destruct. And then they ride her cello case down the mountain. And I love that when I saw it back in the day. It's still pretty cool because it's one of those, like, just like you're like, what are we going to do? Oh, let's just get in this. This will help us go faster. And it does. And they then cross over the border into Austria. And it's like, we have nothing to declare. And she's like, except my cello. Anyway. And meanwhile, Pushkin meets with an arms dealer, Brad Whitaker, Jodan Baker, in Tangier, informing him that the KGB is canceling an arms deal previously arranged between Koskov and Whitaker. Because now Pushkin knows that Koskov is bad. And he's like, no, we're done. Like, this is not, that was his own deal, not our deal. And Whitaker's like, what the fuck? But he tries to play this badass, but he's not even a military guy. He's never been in the military, but he wears these military uniforms. He's no kind of rank, but he says that he's a rank. It's just kind of cool. He's like this poser. He's not your main bad guy. I guess Koskov would be your main bad guy, but pretty cool. During his brief tryst with Malivoy in Vienna, Bond visits the Prater to meet the MI6 ally Saunders. That was a guy that was his boss when the Koskov defected, who discovers a history of financial dealings between Koskov and Whitaker. As he leaves their meeting, Saunders is killed by Koskov's henchman, Nekros, who again leaves a message, Spirit Spionum. And Bond is pissed. Boy, is he pissed. But it's really cool, that door. I always remember, there's another scene, these things that you remember in your head and your heart and celluloid heart, is that door, that guy messing with the door, and you see the door go, and you don't see like the gruesome blood and all this stuff. All you see is the arm that pushes the door closed. You hear people scream. You know that, Saunders was leaving, and then Bond turns around and then runs over there, and then he's pissed. So it's pretty cool. Bond and Kara promptly leave for Tangier, where Bond confronts Pushkin, who disavows any knowledge of Smirt Spionum and reveals that Koskov is evading arrest for embezzlement of government funds. So, like, Bond is upset with Pushkin, but then Pushkin's like, oh no, here's what's really going on. Like, we're getting him for embezzlement. We're not behind any of this. And Bond's like, oh. So Bond and Pushkin then join forces, and Bond fakes Pushkin's assassination, inducing Whitaker and Koskov to progress with their scheme. And Bond is picked up by the CIA, and we see Felix Leiter. So that part's cool, where he's like, I have an idea. So Bond has this idea to assassinate Pushkin. So Pushkin's up there giving a speech, and all of a sudden he gets shot in the chest, and there's blood all over, and he falls down. And then the camera, the big floodlight, the footlight, whatever you call it, shines over to Bond, and Bond's like, got his gun, and he's like, what? And then he runs away. So now they're like, oh shit, he assassinated him. So, which was their plan all along. You blame Pushkin. The government, like they did, said, Bond, go kill Pushkin. He arrives to talk to Pushkin as opposed to just kill Pushkin, so that's good that he talked to him. So then, meanwhile, Kara confronts Koskov, who tells her that Bond is actually a KGB agent, and convinces her to drug him so that he can be captured. She drugs Bond because she believes that Koskov told her. Bond tells her at the last minute that he's one that shot the rifle out of her hand. So he takes she gives him a drink, and he drinks it, and then he's like, I was the one that shot the gun out of your hand. And it's too late, though. Koskov and his men are there to pick up Bond, and he passes out right about then. Bond is cuffed to the seat of a private plane, and there's these diamonds in the ice around this heart, and she's going to help. Now she's like, okay, I got to help you, Bond. Okay, I'll help you. And Bond's like, that's not a human heart. That's like an animal heart, and I don't know what's going on. And Koskov, Nekros, Kara, and the captive Bond fly to a Soviet airbase in Afghanistan, where Koskov betrays Kara and imprisons her, along with Bond. So Bond uses a key ring to escape, and then she's like, we're free! He says, we're in a jail on a Russian airbase. And she's like, oh, yeah. So that was kind of cool. I like that. The pair escape, and in doing so, free a condemned prisoner, Kamran Shah, leader of the local Mujahideen. Bond, in case you're wondering, because I was typing it in my notes, so Mujahideen, Mujahideen. I was thinking it was Mujahideen, like Dean, Dean or something like that. Anyway, Bond and Milivoy discover that Koskov is using Soviet funds to buy a massive shipment of opium from the Mujahideen, intending to keep the profits with enough left over to supply the Soviets with their arms to buy Western arms from Whitaker. So it's all this Golden Triangle type thing, but within them, so they're all making money. Instead of the Golden Triangle, which was, molasses for slaves. With the Mujahideen's help, Bond plants a bomb aboard the cargo plane carrying the opium, but is spotted and has no choice but to barricade himself into the plane. Bond is going to blow the shipment up, but she doesn't know that he's on the truck in the plane on purpose. So she charges after. Oh yeah, was it a truck? Was it a truck? I put truck here, so it must be a truck. So she charges after the truck as they drive away. Meanwhile, the Mujahideen attack the airbase on horseback and engage the Soviets in a gun battle. So they didn't want to because they were going to do the drug deal. And then he explains, all they're going to do is supply the Soviets with weapons to kill you guys. And he's like, oh, wait a minute. So he didn't like that. Bond stuck on the plane is cool. So yeah, so it was a plane. I put truck. I think anyway, whatever. Forget everything of what I'm saying. Anyway, Bond stuck on the plane is cool. And they see him, and Bond is going to take off in the plane. So now he's beat up some people, and he's in the front of the plane. He's getting ready to take off, and she's now chasing the plane in a Land Rover, and so is Koskov and his men. Bond opens the back of the cargo plane so she can get on with the vehicle. She does. She pulls the vehicle right up, like Knight Rider style. Voom. And Necros also leaps aboard at the last second. Necros is the, diehard guy. And Bond goes to defuse the bomb. Doesn't know that the henchman's on there. It's pretty cool because he's defusing the bomb, and right as he's about to, the henchman's on the plane, and he starts fighting Bond before he can defuse it. And you're like, oh, shit. Like, it's one of those cool little moments, like almost a MacGuffin, but, but him, anyway, you know what I mean. She opens the back. Bond and the henchmen are hanging from the netted cargo. So now the plane's flying, and this cargo net falls out, and Bond and the bad guy are hanging on it, and it's still attached to the plane, the cargo net. It's a pretty cool fight on there, and it's done real. You see it from far away. It's like some real good stunts. Even cooler that as the henchman is hanging from the net and holding on to Bond's boot, Bond cuts the laces off of his boot with a knife, and the boot slips off, and so does the man. And so it's like, now all is good. But it's really cool because Bond, like, takes his knife and, like, cuts, like, 1 lace, 2 lace, like, 4 lace, And it's just like, and the guy's like, his eyes are like, no. It's really fucking cool. And just a good fight over there. After the struggle, Bond deactivates a bomb. Bond then notices Shaw and his men being pursued by Soviet forces. He reactivates a bomb and drops it out of the plane and onto a bridge, blowing it up and helping Shaw and his men escape the Soviets. They're running out of fuel. This part's cool. He has her get on the Jeep. He opens the rear hatch. He pulls the cord in the back. So he's flying the plane. He sets it, whatever. She's in the passenger seat. He runs out. He opens the rear hatch. He pulls the cord on the back of the parachute for the thing that the Jeep is on. And then he jumps in the Jeep real quick. And they're pulled out of the back of the plane by the parachute. They then hit and crash through a small adobe wall. And, like, that unhooks them. The Jeep is unhooked from the thing that it was held on. And then then the plane subsequently crashes, destroying the drugs, while Bond and Kara escape. Bond stops a bit, sees a sign that reads Karachi. Then he says, I know a lovely restaurant in Karachi. And they drive off. Bond returns. That part was so cool. Like, it's like, uh-oh. It's almost like Temple of Doom when the plane's going to crash and, he gets the inflatable raft, all of them, like, they go, like, parachute, like, raft, like, water, like, boom, 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 like, all this stuff. Anyway, very cool. Bond returns to Tangier to kill Whitaker, infiltrating his estate with the help of his ally Felix Leiter. There's a gunfight, and there's a cool part. I think it's kind of a callback to Dr. No, because he says, you've had your 8, now have my 80. And he just unloads his machine gun on him. And he's got this machine gun with, like, a bulletproof window on the top of it. It's kind of funny. Bond defeats Whitaker with the wolf whistle exploding keychain. Like, he hangs it somewhere, and then he, like, and then, and it blows up. And kills Whitaker. Pushkin arrests Koskov, ordering him to be executed before sending him back to Moscow. He says, like, take him back to Moscow in a diplomatic bag. And I'm like, oh, shit. Like, that's awesome. Sometime later, Kara is the solo cellist in a Vienna performance. General Gogol, who you remember from Spy Who Loved Me and all the others up till now, General Gogol has arranged for her an immigration visa so she can come and go as she likes. Cameron Shaw and his men jostle in during the intermission. She is happy to see him. They are introduced to now diplomat General Gogol and the Soviets. Shaw asks where Bond is. M says that Bond is on an assignment. She heads to her dressing room and finds 2 martinis. She then whistles for Bond, and the keychain beeps. She then runs over, and they kiss and go behind the chair, and you hear her say, "Oh, James." Then at the end of the short thing of credits, it says, "The end. James Bond will return." As we said, it doesn't say James Bond will return in License to Kill because it was normally going to be called License Revoked, but then they changed it to License to Kill. And I remember working at the movie theater, and first of all, General Gogol, the guy that played General Gogol, he was sick at this time. And So that's why he wasn't in it as much, and they made more Pushkin the guy, and then Gogol was kind of like becoming a higher up. So I was working at the drive-in movie theater in 1989. Movies like Uncle Buck came out. I remember seeing the Uncle Buck poster, and I'm like, what the fuck? What is this? Like, I had no idea. I was just like, what the fuck is this? This guy, this is so stupid. And then all of a sudden I saw the movie, and I was like, that's fucking brilliant, genius. I love it. But we had a poster, license revoked, and it was Timothy Dalton as James Bond, and I was like, that's awesome, cool. And his license going to be revoked. Holy shit, what's going to happen? Oh my gosh. And then a little bit before it came out, they changed it to License to Kill. And I was like, oh, okay. And, I'm sorry, that was 89. Yes, when I worked there. 87 was for this one. I just, for a second, thought, wait, I was wrong in my years. But no, I never said 89 for this time. But 89, when I worked at the drive-in, it was very cool. Great movies came out. Not so great, Karate Kid 3. Ghostbusters 2. That was cool. Abyss. All these kind of cool things. Anyway, so yeah. Star Trek 6, I believe. But anyway, that's the show. I hope you've all enjoyed it, because I have. And I made it in under an hour, so I hope you're happy. But anyway, please, everybody, be safe with this COVID-19. Me and the wife, she's a nurse. She's kind of like, there's nothing to worry about. Like, people are going over the top. But still, some people out there do worry. The other day, I was at the store. There's a woman in front of the cans of chili. I wanted some cans of chili. And I asked her, ma'am, can I get some chili? Because I didn't want to walk over and get the chili in front of her like I normally would do and say, excuse me, because I knew that she might freak out. There's people who are like, you're in my space, 6 feet. So today when we were at Sprouts, an old man came in behind us and was trying to put his stuff on the conveyor belt. And the cashier had to say, no, back up. You have to be behind that sign over there until they're done. And he's like, oh, she goes, we're just trying to keep people safe. My wife later was like, he's an old man. Like, he's going to die. He's the one that's at risk, like, not us. I was like, yeah, I know. But anyway, it's a crazy, scary time, but everybody have a good time. I'm having a good time doing these podcasts, getting ready to move into my house. Got to figure out which room is going to be my podcast studio. I'm so excited. I'm going to have like a media room, so like a movie room where I can just sit, watch my movies. I'll have some good surround sound in there. And then maybe behind my 2 chairs, I'll probably have 2 chairs, me and the wife, whatever. Behind that, maybe I'll have a little desk with my monitor and 2 microphones. 2 tables and a microphone. So that'll be good. So anyway, until next time, maybe not quite a month, but we're going to be moving. So it may take a little bit of time for me to set up, but not too long. And when we meet up again, it will be License to Kill or License Revoked, however you want to look at it. And it'll be a bunch of fun. And I can't wait. And in a way, I can't wait because I love getting to each one of these movies. And in a way, I can't wait because I'll be glad when I'm done with these movies. Anyway, please enjoy. Everybody go see Elevator to the Gallows. And everybody go see The Housemaid from 1960. Thank you and goodbye.